Yes. What's happening, guys? Good evening. It's your boy, the Boxing Lowdown here. Very happy Christmas Eve to all of you guys, man, that are celebrating. Happy holidays to everybody that is watching. Listen, we're going to be doing a live Christmas Q&A, and I know what you guys are thinking. The first thing you guys are thinking is, oh, where's Laurie? I thought he was jumping on. Well, Laurie is jumping on. He's literally, I was just speaking to him just now, yeah. Do you know what it is? These are the sort of things you have to deal with, man, when you're running a podcast. But his charger in the mains is not working, and I want to make sure I get him on for the full show. So he's just quickly going into another building. I'm going to drive the show until he comes back, and we can get this Q&A started. But first of all, let me just give a big shout out to all of you guys that are about to join, all of you guys that are about to join later that might miss the live show. I want to send nothing but love and appreciation to you all. It's been a great year. I've met a lot of great people along the way. And we're going to enjoy this Q&A today, man. A bit lighthearted, a bit of fun, and ask anything. Ask me anything boxing related, anything that you've got on your mind, anything that you'd like to know, want my opinion on, then let me know. Drop your questions in. I'll get through them all today. Laurie will be on here in a bit. He'll go through it. He'll give you his answers as well. And just big up to everybody, man. Hope you're enjoying your Christmas Eve and looking forward to Christmas Day and the holidays and the New Year. Is strange times that we're in right now. But, you know, it's good to be able to be online and catch up with you guys every week. Do you know what I mean? It's a pleasure. So thank you to you all. And we'll get into your questions, man. So first of all, just want to give some shout outs. Big up to Born Again Biker. I see his comment here. Big up to Francisco. He's got happy holidays. Big up to Ian Hamilton. Hope you have a good Christmas, my man. Good seeing you here. Conrad in the building. He's put good evening. Isfan has put here, love back to you too. Love to all of you guys, man, for real. Nothing but love to all of you guys. Big up WM, my brother. He's put, yo, Merry Christmas, brother Daryl. Good to seeing you, bro. Harvey has put here, yo, Daryl, big up yourself. For real. He said, excited to see where the channel goes in 2022. Listen, man, I'll be honest. I don't even know if I'll be here if it was for you guys, man. Like, a lot of you guys that I hear, you come every week. You make it worthwhile because it's hard work running this boxing channel, man. I swear, it's hard work. You've got to be committed. You've got to be consistent. Even when you look at the numbers and you see, I ain't really got that much numbers, man. Like, there's not a lot of people viewing or not a lot of views. Like, just communicating with you guys every week has been a pleasure, man. So big up to you all. Like I said, for those of you that have just joined, Laurie will be joining. He's just got some laptop issues, so he'll be here. Stefan in the building. He's put happy Christmas, Daryl and Laurie. Have a good one. Cheers for the content throughout 2021 and onto 2022 for sure. Big up yourself, Stefan. Good meeting you, man, and very good to talk boxing with you as well. Conrad Boxing in the building. He's put thank you for the great content, the knowledge, the passion, and the entertainment. Merry Christmas to you, and Merry Christmas to you and everybody else, man. Let's get through some of these questions, man, because we've got some in here. Born Again Biker. I'll start with his question first. He's put here, hi guys. What was the biggest upset of the year? A question that I've seen on other channels. I look forward to your opinion on this. Well, upset of the year, man. I mean, upset of the year. Kiko Martinez and Kid Galahad was one. I think that Josh Warrington and Maurizio Lara, I thought that was last year, but that actually took place at the beginning of this year. That fight did. Seems like forever when that fight took place, but that fight was January or February. Maybe that one. Maybe that was the one where that was the biggest upset because we didn't know Maurizio Lara at all. No one did. He was an unknown quantity. Josh Warrington was on, he was looking very good, undefeated, looking to, defend his belt against Jukan and fight other guys as well, unify the division. Nobody could see him losing. Maybe that one was. But the Kiko Martinez one's up there as well. Maybe the way, I don't know, because they both got knocked out. What other upsets were there this year, man? There was a few. I mean, George Kambosos, if you're talking about in terms of relevance and in terms of how significant it was, not many people picked him to beat Teofimo Lopez. So that could be one as well. Narrow it down to them three. Born Again Biker. I'm going to say, for the relevance, I'd say Kambosos, but I would say Maurizio Lara was a shock seeing Josh Warrington get knocked out like that because, first of all, I thought he had a great chin. I don't think he's been down before. Maurizio Lara just went right through him. But then the Kid Galahad one is tough. It is actually tough. I'd like to see what the other channels are saying. I'd like to see what you guys are saying on this. who you think like who is upset of the year. Harvey said that's what I said. Big up to my bro DS family. He's put here, Merry Christmas, brother. Merry Christmas to you as well. Nathan has put here, Happy Good Christmas, Daryl. Have a good Christmas as well, Nathan. Good seeing you here. Upset of the year, guys. I'm gonna say Warrington and Lara. I'm gonna say that. I don't know if that's the one you said, Harvey, but there was a lot of upsets this year. That one might have been the biggest upset of the year because nobody knew who Maurizio Lara was. But the stakes in the Kambosos and Lopez fight, as Francisco was saying, was huge. Unified, lightweight championship on the line. Teofimo Lopez, the guy that beat Lomachenko, nobody really picked him to lose against Kambosos. So in terms of the relevance, yeah, I'd say maybe that. But in terms of the shock factor, maybe the Lara and Warrington one. Maybe that one. The Kiko Martinez one as well. Harvey saying that's the one he said. Maybe the Kiko Martinez one because of the knockout and the fact that none of us really were even bothered about that fight. And it was the same with the Lara fight, actually. But the way how Kiko Martinez knocked out Kid Galahad, but we knew who Martinez was. We knew he could punch. So I'm going to say Maurizio Lara. I'm going to say that fight there was my upset of the year. We'll wait till Laurie comes in and we'll see what he has to say. WM. No, let's go to Isfan's Grob here. His comment. He's put here, Fury's ducking Dillian as expected. Listen, man, Tyson Fury, I don't know what the situation is. I mean, I'm not in a negotiation room. I don't know what's being said. But if what is to be believed, what we're hearing about the 80-20 purse split, and, it's just ridiculous. And to me, that is pretty much you telling me you don't want to fight. Everybody knows Dillian White is worth more than 20% if we're talking about negotiations. And I hate talking about negotiations, because I don't care what a fighter gets. Do you know what I mean? It don't affect my pocket what a fighter gets. I just want to see the fights. So, but even I can tell you that 80-20 is ridiculous. Do you know what I mean? White is a pay-per-view attraction over here. And, he's filled out the O2 before. He's headlined it against the likes of Oscar Rivas, against the likes of Joseph Parker. Dillian White has headline pay-per-views over here in the UK, sold out the O2. So to offer him 20% is just a joke. It doesn't tell me that Queensberry and Top Rank are very serious about it. Then I'm hearing some stuff about the WBC and about the arbitration that's going on, where there's still a disagreement about the split, and it comes down to that. So, listen, what you get with the Furies is just never clear. It's never consistent. You just never know. If you don't fight Dillian White, I'm saying it's a duck. I don't care. I'm saying it's a duck, man, because there's no excuse. There's no excuse for you not to fight Dillian. Unless Dillian is really pricing himself out of this. I don't know what side of the fence you're on. But, if we don't get that fight, I'll be very disappointed. I will. But I agree with you there, Isfan. I'm not happy with that situation at all. Big up WM here. He's put, Daryl, McKinson is going to shock the world and beat Ortiz, isn't he? Well, I don't know, man. I don't think he is, man. I know you want him to, but I just can't see him keeping Ortiz off of him, WM. I can't see it. I could see him doing a job. I could see him boxing great off the back foot, but will he be able to sustain that? It's going to be on away soil as well. It's going to be probably in Texas where Ortiz is based. It's probably going to be there. The crowd are going to be pumped up. Is McKinson, he's never touched those type of waters before. It's going to be a lot for him to handle, man. And it's going to take a lot to keep Ortiz off of you. McKinson's only got 2 knockouts in, however many fights I think he's got. I don't know. I'd love to see him do it, but Ortiz is for real. I just think that he's come through the adversity already against the Mean Machine. He was wobbled in that fight. He was a very good boxer as well. Maurice Hooker is a good boxer. He beat him, stopped him. So, listen, it's a very interesting fight, and I'm really happy that McKinson's got this opportunity. But, if I'm being real, WM, I don't know. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it, for real. Big up Ian Hamilton here. He's put, I'm biased on this one, but is Josh Taylor the UK Fighter of the Year for you, considering he has all the belts? I'm going to see him versus Catterall. Big up Ian Hamilton, based up there in Scotland. Josh Taylor became undisputed. I mean, who else is fighter of the year? I mean, who else? When you look at Josh Taylor's last 5 opponents, man, like the record of these guys, all undefeated. I think it's phenomenal, his last few opponents. Became undisputed champion in the UK. Yeah, I'd say he is. Some people might say Fury, but not for me. A lot of people knew he was going to beat Wilder. Josh Taylor did something, pretty special. Became the first British fighter to hold all 4 of the belts. Undisputed champion. Yeah, I'd give him the fighter of the year. Definitely. In the UK anyway, for sure. Let's see what you guys are saying here. Pick up my brother Obes in the chat. He's in the building. Good to see you, Obes. Merry Christmas to you. Don't you worry, guys. Laurie is on the way. He will be joining us very soon. Obes has said here, I tried to like Fury after the Wilder fight. He proved me right yet again. I have to say the same, man. Listen, I don't hate Fury. I think out of all the Furies, I'm not their biggest fan, but Tyson, I don't mind him. It's just some of the antics that he does, man. It's just like, I can't rock with it. Like you said, I try and ignore it, but it's just, maybe it's the fan base as well, because there are a lot of deluded Fury fans out there. You see some of them on Twitter, man. The guy could do no wrong. And like, yeah, he's, I don't know. I just can't be asked with some of the antics and the stuff that he has to deal with, man. I'm not his biggest fan. I don't hate the guy, but yeah, I'm not his biggest fan. Harvey said here, even Pulev got 35% against AJ. Obes has said here, White sells out 20K on a normal one. Fury has never had a big show here. Absolutely 100%. Why is he offering Dillian White 20% if those rumors are to be true? Doesn't make any sense at all. Shane Willoughby, my brother, has put here, yo, what's the surprise, bro? Listen. See this, yeah? This is for Laurie. When he comes on, I've got a special gift for him, so you'll see. Just stay tuned, and we'll show Laurie what the surprise is. I'll put this here, and when he comes on, you guys will see. Harvey already knows what it is. It's going to be good. It is going to be really good, man. So I'm just waiting for Laurie to come on. For those of you that missed it, he was here, but his laptop's not charging, so he's moved to another room. So he's just setting that up, and then he's going to join us. So he will be here soon. Obes just put here, man, I'm gutted. This could have been Chris Congo. Yeah, it could have been. McKinson, yeah, big up to him, man, because he came out of nowhere. Well, we didn't know who he was, but no one really saw him like bursting on the scene like that, defeating Chris Congo like he did. But it was very impressive win, and now look what he's got. He's got a massive opportunity against one of the most talented fighters in boxing right now, Virgil Ortiz. Shane Willoughby in the chat here, he's put, fight of the year, point blank, period, in the world is Nonito Donaire. Big up Shane Willoughby, man. Nonito Donaire, yeah, he was out last time out, looked very good. Nonito Donaire, to be still active at this time, still looking very good, still getting knockouts at this age. It's hard not to like Nonito Donaire, man. Fighter of the year, I mean, who are you guys picking? I mean, a lot of people will pick Canelo for becoming undisputed, defeating the likes of Billy Joe Saunders and Caleb Plant, taking 2 undefeated fighters O's. He was always going to be the favorite in those fights, but, he got the knockout win in both of them. He became undisputed super middleweight champion. Would you give it to Canelo? Do you know what I mean? Would you give it to Usyk going up against AJ, unifying the heavyweight championships? He was an underdog in that fight. Did it over there in AJ's backyard, pretty much. Does he get your fighter of the year? Nonito Donaire, Shane's pretty firm in that assessment, giving it to him. We'll be interested to see what you guys think for your fighter of the year. We're going to do an award show next week, so look out for that. But big up to everybody, man. Don't forget, drop your questions in here, and we'll answer them. But who is your fighter of the year? Shane is saying here it's Nonito Donaire. Looking forward to hearing what you guys think about that. Obes is saying here, I wasn't a fan of Taylor because of his outside of the ring activities, but he's become one of my favorite guys. I have to agree. Josh Taylor was somebody that at first I wasn't his biggest fan. I just wasn't. Do you know what I mean? I just didn't like his out of the ring antics. But to be fair, he grown on me, and it's hard not to. It's hard. You can't not respect the guy. Do you know what I mean? You can't not respect him. What he's done, who he's beat, how he's beat them. You have to respect him. You don't have to like him, but he's actually grown on me as well. I'm actually a fan of Josh Taylor now, and I can't help but back him against Catterall when he fights him next year. That's going to be. I saw the press conference for that fight, and that was just, I just can't see Catterall. I don't give him any chance against Josh Taylor, man. I'd be very surprised if he was to beat Josh Taylor. And Catterall's not bad, but he's just not on the same level. If we're being honest, he's not on the same level at all. Conrad has said here, before I go on, we'll get on to that. Laurie is in the building. I'm going to get him on. Laurie from AFTV in the house, man. What's going on?
I'm okay, man. What's happening?
What's happening with the laptop? Is it charging? What's going on?
No, there's something wrong with the electricity feed into this building. I'm not quite sure what it is.
Yeah.
But I've had to move to another part of the building, hence the background's not fully lit. So there's still a problem. But can you hear me okay?
I can hear you all good, man. I can hear you all good.
You can
Just
see me
wishing our
okay, yeah?
just wishing our people in here, man, a Merry Christmas. Just Q&A. Good to have everybody here, man. The festivities are started. And look, before we get on to our questions, man, I'm just gonna pour a little drink here, little Maggie, and we'll get it moving, man. Live Q&A. So, Laurie, let me ask you this. What will be your upset of the year? Because that was one of the questions. Your upset of the year off the top of your head. We've got quite a few. I said Lara and Warrington was one of them, but we've also had Kambosos and Lopez. We've had Warrington and we've had Kid Galahad and Martinez. A few others, Usyk, Joshua, maybe. What would be your upset of the year in your opinion?
For me, I'd definitely have to go for Kambosos Lopez. Massive upset, although I did give him a chance to win that fight because I was impressed leading into the fight of his attitude and the way he carried himself. He demonstrated real confidence and swagger, and that made me believe in him. But I just thought ultimately that Teofimo would be too good, hit too hard, and have enough ambition to. And then I didn't think that Kambosos would get a decision on the cards. That was one of my main concerns. It always is for these types of fights, You got the headline fighter being promoted on his own show, so to speak, and you always think that if it's anywhere near close, or even just goes the distance, you always think that the sort of home fighter is going to get it. So I was pretty sure that Lopez was going to win, although I was sure that Kambosos would give him a good fight. But to see the way he fought in that fight, he fully deserved the win, and fair play to the judges. They gave him the win. The decision was absolutely 100% correct, despite what Teofimo and his dad said.
I think that was your favourite fight of the year as well, the way you were acting after that, man. Yeah.
It was one of my highlights of the year, 100%. To see, you see, the thing in life is right now, sometimes you have to be, even by boxing standards, there has to be some humility to what you do. You know what I mean? I can understand fighters. Boxing has a long tradition going way back, even before Muhammad Ali, of guys, you know what I mean, with swagger and predicting wins and knockouts and stuff like that. Boxing's always been that type of sport. But even within that, there should be a modicum of respect and humility. And you got none of it, especially after he won the title. After he won the title, man, it made him a monster. It really did. Teofimo and his dad, they just got completely carried away. Their egos took over everything. And it just made them pretty damn obnoxious, man. I was crying out for somebody to shut them up. And fair play to Kambosos. He said he was going to do it, and he did it. And I honestly think, and some people here watching this may disagree with me, I honestly think that Kambosos winning that fight was for the good of boxing.
For sure. Go to a comment here from Ian Hamilton. He's put, one highlight of the year is Laurie. Every time the subject of Canelo comes up, giving him credit, he's been consistent on that subject. And look, Laurie, listen, man. First of all, you definitely did. First of all, you got my present. Obviously, Christmas time and everything else.
I haven't opened it yet, so don't spoiler alert.
Now I got another present for you here.
Oh right, okay.
Let me go and get it. Hold on. Just for the show, So you guys can see it, yeah? In here. Laurie's present. This came today, I think.
I'm looking forward to this.
Your very own Team Canelo t-shirt.
Canelo.
This is for you, Laurie, from me. And all the boxing fans in it. This is for you, man. I'm sending it over to you. Team Canelo t-shirt for you, Laurie. On its way. I've got your address, obviously, so I'm going to send it down. And you know what? On the next show, you've got to wear it. You've got to wear this t-shirt on the next show, man.
Yeah, I don't mind wearing that. Who bought that? You? Or would somebody send it?
Huh? Yeah.
You got that? Wow.
So yeah, this is for you. Big up yourself, man. You gotta wear it. Team Canelo. That's for you, Laurie.
Listen, man, I've always been consistent in saying that the man is a great fighter. I've never once said that anything different, have I? I've never once said that he's not a great fighter. I've also said that he would be my pound for pound number one had it not been for the PED use and for the continued speculation around that. Because what some people don't realize, Daryl, is that with the PED use, we're not 100% sure that the man's still not cheating. You know why? Because when he failed those initial drugs tests for the clenbuterol, yeah, what the WBC did was to up the levels. So that means that if he was found to have the same or similar levels of clenbuterol in his system post that test, he would always pass. So how do you know that the man's still not doing the stuff that he was doing before? And that's why I've felt the need to call this out because, you're not going to get your mainstream, your Dan Raphaels, your Gareth Davis, your Steve Kims, your Doug Fishers, your people like that. They're not going to call this stuff out. So it's up to people like you and me and one or two others who have got the guts and the cojones to call it out and say, look, what's happening, man? What's going on? Why is this man allowed to bend the rules this way? If people like us don't do it, none of them mainstream guys are going to do it. And that's the beauty of YouTube channels and social media and stuff like that.
All right, but are you going to wear that T-shirt, though? Are you going to wear it?
I don't mind wearing the T-shirt because, let's face it, I watch his fights and I think he's a great fighter. But no man in this world is above criticism, man. You know what I mean? Or no man in this world is above being called out for mistakes that they've made.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't have a huge problem in wearing the T-shirt. I'm not a...
Well, it's your T-shirt.
I admire him as a fighter. I don't admire him so much as a person because I believe he's a cheat.
Well, and your T-shirt now, anyway.
Still cheating.
Yeah, it's your T-shirt. You can wear that to the gym or whatever, man. Hitting the bag. You know what I mean? Can hit the bag, man. So yeah,
it's a nice T-shirt. It's a nice
T-shirt, man. It looks nice, look.
But I wouldn't say it was Team Canelo, though. But it's a nice T-shirt.
Yeah. No, I like it. Might get my own one as well, but yeah, that's for you, man. I'll send that over to you. Shane Willoughby has put here, man has got the Magnum out. You already know what time it is, Shane. Harvey is saying it well. Bro's got the Magnum. You already know. Some upsets of the year here. A good one here from Obes was Sandor Martin against Mikey Garcia. I forgot about that one. That was a good. That was a good one as well. Yeah. It was,
that was a good one.
DS has said here, Kiko was the biggest upset for me. I wasn't completely shocked when Tio lost to Kambosos. So that just the way how that upset happened as well. The knockdowns were dramatic. You had Darren Barker screaming, "Oh!" Like it was crazy.
I got the impression that Darren Barker quite enjoyed that. He would never admit that publicly. I got the impression he quite enjoyed that knockout. But going back to the Kiko Martinez Kambosos upsets. Dean makes a very good point there. The only reason why I give the edge to Kambosos was the magnitude of the fight. I know that they were both upsets. They were both world title fights as well. And yes, Kiko was probably the bigger underdog. However, I think it was the fact that Tio was supposed to be this star, wasn't he? Remember the Four Kings and all that stuff? There was talk about he was going to go on and move up in weight and fight Josh Taylor and all that. So a lot of people were very high on him, man. They were saying that, he's in the next pound for pound listings. He was calling himself undisputed champion and so forth and so forth. And a lot of people were believing it. So for him to get upset in his first defense like that against a guy from Australia, who, let's be honest, a lot of the general public wouldn't have been aware of. To me, that was a massive upset because you have to recall that fight for Teofimo was in his hometown. That was like a coming out party for him, wasn't it?
Yeah,
after
it was.
defeating Lomachenko. He defeated Lomachenko. A lot of people had Lomachenko high up there on their pound for pound list. This 23-year-old kid comes out of nowhere, really, and beats him. And everyone's lauding him as this next star. He starts talking himself up and saying, I'm going to move up in weights and this and that and rare. And then along comes Kambosos, man, and just puts a hole in all those plans. So, yeah, man. Yeah. I could see why some people would go for Kiko because of the drama of that fight. The fact that he was, let's face it, he was getting soundly beaten before he landed that punch as well.
Yeah.
But I think the overall magnitude, the whole event of the Teofimo versus Kambosos fight was a bigger fight for me. So I think that one edges it.
Okay. All right. Let's because we'll have to get through quite a bit of questions. So we'll just go through them as we can. But Shane has put here, bro, I'm not gonna lie. When I watched the Sandor Martin fight, I was watching it like I was dreaming. I couldn't understand what was going on. That was a huge fight as well. Sandor Martin, nobody really picked him to beat Mikey Garcia as well.
No.
A lot of guys here are really happy about you getting that Canelo t-shirt, I think. Obes is laughing, Conrad laughing, Harvey laughing. Yeah, man, it's good. You know what I mean? It's all good, man. DS has put here, Merry Christmas, Uncle Laurie. Do you know what I mean? A lot of love here in the building, man. Obes has put here, Mexico. Oi.
Get the fuck out of here, man. Get the fuck out of here, man.
We got Obes here, man. He put Viva Mexico. Conrad has said here, Canelo going to spend that t-shirt money on beef. You already know that.
Well,
yeah. Francisco says here, you should also get Laurie a t-shirt that says "Want pay." I might get that on the back.
You want pay there? You want pay there?
Obes is saying here.
That's the thing about Canelo. He's good at giving up paydays. I mean, you know, Abner Yildirim, Callum Smith. You know what I mean? Makubu, the list goes on. Caleb Plant, all get career high paydays. But guess what? They all get knocked out too. So, you know, we'll see what's happening.
Yeah, man, a lot of good banter with that t-shirt, man. I did get Laurie another present, by the way. He'll open that on Christmas Day. That was a serious present. But yeah, that Canelo t-shirt's a present as well, man. It's a nice t-shirt.
Yeah, like you said, I can wear that to the gym. I mean,
yeah,
you know, yeah, that's great, man. No problem.
Question here from Ian Hamilton. He's put here, question for the both of you. Which 3 classic fights would you be at ringside if you could go back in time? Well, I'll start, Laurie. I'll start.
Yeah.
So 3 classic fights for me. I'm not going to say they're necessarily the best fights of all time or anything like that, but just my personal opinion, what I would have loved to have been ringside at. Growing up, man, you know, watching the fights from the late 90s, the early 2000s and so on, you know, I was a big fan of a lot of those guys, man. And for me, one of them would have been probably Trinidad and Vargas. That one, for me personally, because the crowd was just, you had the Puerto Ricans, you had the Mexicans, there were 5 knockdowns. Both of them were huge stars. It was a very dramatic fight and a dramatic ending. Maybe that would have been one of them. The second one, second one for me, I'd probably say just Lewis and Tyson, just for the magnitude of it. It was a huge fight, man. For me, it was a huge fight, massive. You look back on it now and you see how it ended up, and it, you know, it's not really spoken about in that way. But at the time, the fight was so huge. It was reported everywhere, mainstream media, everywhere. A Tyson fight was always like huge. So Lewis and Tyson for me, because of their history, because they were the fighters that I grew up on, that would have been the second one. What would the third one have been? Third one. I would have loved to have been at Hagler Hearns as well, for me.
Right.
Just how dramatic it was. Do you know what I mean? One of the best fights of all time, that fight was. And ending was conclusive, brutal. It was just one of the best fights we've ever seen. So they're my 3. What about yours, Laurie?
Yeah, I mean, that's a very challenging question, I have to say.
Yeah.
But if I was to name 3 straight off the bat, I mean, at first I want to say I've been to some great fights over the years. And one of the best fights I've ever been to that I was actually in the stadium, me and one of my brothers, me and Gary went to that, was when Nigel Benn beat Gerald McClellan in England. I think that was 1995 or something like that. That was an unbelievable night. Again, an upset win, because a lot of people thought that Ben was going to get wasted in that fight.
Tragic as well.
Yeah, it was tragic. Yeah, and when he went through the ropes in that first round, you thought, yeah, man, he's gonna get taken out. But he came back, man, and the rest is history. But yeah, in answer to your question, I think the 3 fights. Listen, man, I'm a massive Muhammad Ali fan. I think he is the greatest of all time. And there's 2 fights of his that come to mind immediately. That would be the Ali Fraser, the first one, Thriller. Sorry, actually, it wasn't the Thriller in Manila. Actually, yeah, put the Thriller in Manila in there. Yeah, yeah. I was going to say the first one at Madison Square Garden where he lost, but you could put the Thriller, substitute either one of them two. I would have the Rumble in the Jungle.
Yeah.
Would have loved to have been there. The fact that it was in Africa as well.
Africa as well, yeah, it's a good shot actually.
So I'd have to put that one. And then for the third one, one of my all-time favorite fights, man, Leonard versus Hearns, 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was a sensational fight against two guys in the primes of their careers. Undisputed welterweight championship of the world. Leonard actually came from behind to stop Tommy Hearns. I think it was in the 14th round or something like that. So yeah, so those would have been my. But I mean, there's so many. If I sat and thought about it, man, I could be here all day tell you the fights I'd love to have been at. But those three kind of stick out.
Yeah. It's funny you say that because you've inadvertently answered the next question from Francisco Alator. He's put here, what's your favorite all-time fight? Mine is Leonard versus Hearns 1. I was 13 then, and I loved the excitement. As an adult, I love it because it was a great tactical boxing match between two incredible talents. So that's his favorite all-time fight.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue with that at all, man. I mean, I remember that. I was still young at the time, and I remember the build-up to that fight. The way these two were, you know what I mean? They didn't like each other. And it was the typical grudge match and the level of skill on display as well. And the fact that both of them were in their primes. Actually, they might even been a bit before their primes, but they were young and energetic and, you know what I mean? There was absolutely bang on there. And they produced a sensational fight. Skills, thrills, ebb and flow, knockdowns, you know what I mean? Everything, man. It was a sensational fight. And people look at that fight, man, and they talk about that, you know what I mean, for all time's sake. That was a sensational fight.
One of mine, I'd say, I don't know, it's not like it was the best fight ever or the fight. It wasn't like it was a dramatic 3-4 knockdown type of fight, but one that comes to mind straight away, one of my favorite all-time fights was Hopkins against Trinidad. Because going into that fight, they had September the 11th. I was about 13, 14 years old. They had September the 11th, 2 weeks before that. There were rumors that the fight was going to be cancelled. They had the middleweight tournament. Those two fighters were in the final. I was so on my boxing then. I was boxing at a local gym. I was like competitive in boxing. So I really did a lot of research on Bernard Hopkins before that. He was 37 years old. He was like, nobody picked him to win. He was like the American dream. So I just thought, right, I want to back this guy. But everybody's talking about Trinidad and how it was made for him to be the star. He was just coming up from junior middleweight. He was undefeated. He was knocking everybody out. Hopkins was supposed to be a guy that, you know, he was going to knock out and, you know, go on to superstardom. But there was something about Hopkins where I just really wanted him to win. And I love Trinidad as well. And the way how Hopkins did it, because we didn't have the access to boxing as we do now, of course. So we had to catch on it like the next day or so. But the Hopkins put in one of the best performances of his career, breakthrough fight, defeated the undefeated Trinidad, knocked him out in the 12th round. And it was just a fantastic performance. Nobody expected that. 2 weeks after 9/11 as well, Hopkins was really the American dream following that fight. And he really put himself out there. So I'd say that was one of them that just comes to mind. I'm not saying it was my all-time, but it was definitely one for me personally.
No, I remember that fight. And one of the reasons why that Hopkins win was so great is because in the previous fight to that, because it was like a tournament, the previous fight to that, I remember that Trinidad had fought William Joppy, who was a good champion at the time, and he absolutely dismantled William Joppy. Bounced him up and down the canvas. And going into that Hopkins fight, everyone was looking at that performance by Trinidad and saying, listen, man, no one can live with this guy. You know what I mean? So for him to do that was incredible. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think one fight that we did leave off our list that we, you know what I mean, we do need to mention it because it was such a memorable occasion and such a great fight and one that's been talked of so much since it's come and gone, is the Joseph Parker versus Junior Farr fight. I mean...
That was last year. That was mate.
But you know what I want to say, man? I was going to say at the start of this show that given that we're in the festive season, I should. It's only right that I should give my humble apologies to Joseph Parker, because he put in a performance last week that I didn't think he had in it. And he was actually in a very good fight as well. So yeah, it's a shout out to Joseph Parker, man. I do like to be a fair man. So if I've given him a lot of stick on this show and really dissed him hard, if he then turns around and puts in a performance worthy of the name, it's only right that we should mention it. So yeah. So Joseph Parker, if you're watching, or any of his fans or anyone that, like Joseph Parker, you could say that, listen, like, at least Laurie's giving him credit for his latest win. I thought he boxed really well, and it's a very good fight. And shout out again, man, I'll keep saying it, Andy Lee, man. Good trainer, very good commentator, knows his stuff, and you can see in that corner, man, that he definitely had the desired effect on Joseph Parker.
He did for sure. Question here, big up Big Lou in the house. He's put here, what advice would you give to AJ in the rematch with Usyk? I'll start with this, Laurie. Advice I would give to AJ in the rematch is, I'd say, remember that you're the bigger man. Use your physical gifts against Usyk. You're never going to beat him in a boxing match. You're going to have to be brave a little bit, man. You might have to take a couple, but you're going to have to try and really assert your authority, establish your ring generalship, because if you're going to stand off Usyk and try and box him like you did in the first fight, it's not going to end up well. He's going to outbox you completely. I'd advise him, there's not much to change. You're not going to fight like a Chisora or anyone like that next time round. I'm not saying to rush him, but I'm just going to say use your physical gifts. See how Bradis fought against him in that fight, because he got a lot of success. Maris Bradis did. And just utilize your strength, man, and just be the dominant force, be the ring general.
You know what? If I'm his trainer or am I in his brain's trust, there's one word: mindset. The mindset has to change. The mindset has to be right. You mentioned it earlier as well. He's got to be aggressive, but he can't just be like aggressive and not be defensively responsible, because Usyk will pick you apart. But the reason why I mentioned mindset is that, listen, man, we know that in that first fight, he got the tactics completely wrong. But we also know, those of us who was watching the fight, is that when he did land on Usyk, there were noticeable effects. I mean, and Usyk has even said since the fight that Joshua did hurt him a couple of times. Also, Usyk's face was quite marked up. So listen, we know that Joshua has the size, strength, and power to trouble Usyk, but the mindset's got to be right. He was too passive in the first fight, and it cost him dearly. And once he's kind of settled into that passivity, it's very hard to break out of it in a fight, trust me. So the mindset going in there's got to be right. And I do believe that if he gets that right, he has a chance. I really do. I'm not saying he's going to go in there and blow Usyk away, because no one's ever done that. But what I'm saying is, if he can, as you alluded to earlier, if he can make the most of his physical advantages, and adopt the right mindset, he can win. He can win. But, it's a big but, the mindset's got to be right.
Yep. Another question here from Big Lou. He's put here, out of 10, what chance would you give Dillian Whyte against Tyson Fury? For me, there's two different Furies. If we have the Fury that fought against Klitschko, the one that was on his toes, the one that was boxing and moving, or the first fight with Wilder, if it's that Fury that comes in, then I don't give Dillian Whyte much of a chance. I'll probably give him like a 4 or a 3, if I'm being real, if that Fury shows up. If the Fury that fought Wilder in the third fight shows up, I give Dillian Whyte a 6, a much better chance, maybe 6, not 7. I'd say 6. So I still got Fury as the favorite, but I'd say I'd give it to Tyson Fury, man. I'd edge Fury, but it depends what Fury shows up.
Yeah, I would agree. Listen, I think Dillian's got a puncher's chance. I mean, we've heard Dillian's said on several occasions that he did very well against Tyson Fury in sparring, that he dropped him a few times. And I've got no reason to disbelieve Dillian when he said that, because he said it so many times, and Tyson's not really denied it, to be honest. So he does have a puncher's chance. However, unless Tyson Fury comes into that fight unprepared and overconfident, then I see him boxing his way to a 12-round decision, or maybe even a late stoppage. Because one thing I've noticed about Dillian is that he does tend to gas out late in fights. even in fights when he's won. If you remember the fight with Joseph Parker, he barely got across the line, didn't he? Even though he was winning quite comfortably up until that point. There's been other fights he's had when he's finished looking a little bit unsteady on his legs. He doesn't have great legs, Dillian. His balance is not the greatest. You know what I mean? And obviously when he gasses out a bit, the balance can give way a little bit. So I do think that with the size and skills of a Tyson Fury, he's going to be up against it. But he can make it very interesting. And if Tyson Fury is sleeping on Dillian, then he could be in for some problems. But listen, man, I mean, you have to say, again, Tyson Fury is one that I've been very critical of in the past. He's also a convicted drugs cheat. But you can't argue with what the man produces in the ring, much like Canelo. He always produces. So you got to say Tyson Fury is a heavy favourite. But I do give Dillian a chance. It's not completely out of the question that he could win.
Okay.
Out of 10, I'll give him about 4.
Yeah.
4 out of 10 chance.
Yeah, I'd say 3, 4. Yeah, depending what Fury shows. Like, yeah. Mohammed says here, thoughts on the featherweight division currently. At the top, I guess you've got to have Navarrete. You've got Maurizio Lara, Josh Warrington.
What about Gary Russell Jr., man?
Gary Russell Jr., yeah. I mean, he's been inactive, isn't he? He's fighting what? Is he got a fight schedule now?
Yeah, they're talking about Gary Russell Jr. possibly fighting Gervonta Davis. I'd love to see that fight.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be at featherweight, would it?
No, that'd be stepping up. But I think Gary Russell Jr. is if I remember rightly, he's the longest reigning champion.
He's getting fought.
Yeah, well, that as well, yeah. But yeah, man, that's a good division. There are several good divisions out there.
Yeah, featherweight, it's okay. It's not my. It's not
a glamour division, is it?
Nah, not.
But there are some good fighters in that weight class.
I mean, Kiko shocked Kid Galahad at that weight, of course. Lee Wood, you know, he's looking good. Yeah. He'll be fighting Condon next year, won't he?
Yep.
Who have you got in that?
You know, I'd edge Conlon, but again, it wouldn't be completely out the question if Lee Wood pulled it off, because Lee Wood's made a hell of a lot of improvements in his career, and he's punching hard. And his last fight, he looked really impressive. Yeah. And you know what boxing's like, man. You know what I mean? Confidence is a big thing when it comes to boxing. Conlon, I would have to say, I mean, I don't know what you think about this, is that so far his career has gone slightly under the radar, especially in recent times. You know what I mean? He got off to a big buzz, didn't he? Fighting on St. Patrick's Day every year and all that type of stuff, and bowling over foes that were, you know, not really in his class. But since then, man, he's kind of stalled a little bit.
Yeah.
So he needs a big fight, man. So yeah, him versus Lee Wood, that would be a great fight.
You know I think that's a very good fight.
Yeah, very good fight. Irish versus English, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
that'd be a great fight, and one that he needs to breathe some life back into that career. Because I mean, I know, he does pull crowds, he is popular. It's just that his profile in recent months, going back about a year or so, has not been what it was expected to have been. I think that's fair to say. So he needs a big fight, man. So that will probably motivate him as well. But that will be a very good fight. Like I said, I've watched Lee Wood. His last fight, he looked very good. It was an upset win, really, for a lot of people. And on the night, let's face it, he well won that fight, man. Completely controlled it in a way that surprised me. So, yeah, good on him.
Question here from Obes. He's put here, how did you get into boxing? Mine was David Hay. I saw him knock out Enzo, and the next week I went to the gym. I'll start off first. For me, how I got into boxing, I didn't have a choice. You know, I mean, obviously living with Dad, and like he used to, like, he was boxing, and I never really, I mean, I probably got into it when I was an early teenager, like 12, 13, about 13, I'd say 13, 14. I got into it. Dad used to have, like, because we had VHS back then, so Dad would have all the tapes, Roy Jones Jr., like those sort of fights, Shane Mosley against Oscar De La Hoya. I'd go in the living room, I'd want to watch like something on the TV, maybe some cartoon or something like that, maybe a sitcom, but Dad's got the boxing on, and then I just had to watch it. Do you know what I mean? And then eventually I just thought, you know what, this is actually all right. the Roy Jones Juniors, Shane Mosley, Oscar De La Hoya, that fight in the year 2000, that was a fight I watched a lot. Yeah, Roy Jones, Floyd Mayweather, when he was coming up, before anybody knew him, like those were the times when he was fighting the likes of Angel Manfredi and those guys. Nobody really knew Floyd back then. Dad had tapes of all of them. You know, he went to New York, went to Gleason's gym, met Zab Judah. I used to see all the pictures. And then I just saw these guys fight, and I just really got an interest in it. And then I started going to the gym, and the rest was history. That's how I got into it. But Laurie, how did you get into it?
Well, you know what? So similar to your type of experience, but obviously with my dad, who would have been your granddad, who's now deceased, God rest his soul. But yeah, he was heavily into boxing, and I kind of picked it up from him. So back in those days, it would have been Muhammad Ali. And then later on, people like Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns, and Duran, and people like that. But yeah, so one of my first sporting heroes was Muhammad Ali. My dad was heavily into boxing, cricket, and football, maybe in that order. And then I've come along as a child, and so you tend to do what your dad does. I spent a lot of time around your dad. Your dad's your first kind of real role model, isn't he? So if he's watching things on TV, you tend to watch things on TV as well. And so it's no surprise that very quickly those became my three favorite sports. But I always had this thing about boxing, man. It's the drama of it, that sort of gladiatorial sport, you know, that one-on-one type of thing, which obviously cricket and football don't have. That drew me to it. You know what I mean? Growing up, you know, you want to be the strongest man, the best, you know, best fighter, the best warrior, you know what I mean? That type of stuff. So boxing had a natural connection with me. And the way I, you know what I mean, my mindset and stuff like that. So I was intrigued, fascinated by all these characters. And then you can imagine as a young black kid, you've seen someone like Muhammad Ali, man, you know what I mean, winning fights, predicting what round, telling everyone he's the greatest, you know what I mean? You're a young, impressionable kid and you see that, you know what I mean? You gravitate towards that. You want to be like that person, you know what I mean? So yeah, man, Muhammad Ali was like my first hero and is my single greatest hero, not just in sport, but in life, everything he stood for. So yeah, that's what was my great. And then obviously you see that, and then I was pretty decent athletically growing up as a kid. So naturally you want to try these things. You want to play football. You want to create cricket. We didn't have boxing in school, but I went to local gyms and just kind of fell in love with the sport from there.
Yeah, I have to mention as well, obviously, the Mike Tysons, the Lennox Lewises, Prince Nassim Hamed. I was growing up watching those guys, and yeah, you watch them people, and you just kind of you get roped in, man. You just got I just got roped in, And
I would say as well, just quickly, that boxing's a type of sport that kind of draws you in, unlike any other sport. Particularly if you box like I have and you have, you get a connection, a feeling for the sport that I never got with other sports. I mean, growing up in school, I did pretty much all the sports I could. You know what I mean? Track and field, cricket, rugby, football, and I enjoyed pretty basketball, all of them. But once I started to box, the connection with boxing was unbelievably strong, overpowering almost. And that is why, even to this day, I can understand, even though I don't like it, when some fighters carry on way past their best. Because it's like a drug, man, boxing is. The high you get when you win a boxing match is like nothing else. Yeah, certainly that in my sporting activities over the years. And the lows you get as well from a loss in boxing is like nothing else. You know what I mean? When you lose in a football game or cricket or whatever, or team sport, collectively you can, even if it's a devastating loss at the time, you can collectively get over that. When it's boxing, it's way different story, man. But then again, the highs of winning a boxing match as well, the sense of pride, the sense of achievement that you get from that, that sense of confidence and well-being is like nothing else you can get. So yeah, man, boxing is that innate drug. That's why you see, like I said, a lot of times people, they're fighting on, a lot of them doing it for the money. But even the guys who, even like Mayweather, you know what I mean? He fights on because he got that little drug, that boxing drug in him, man. You know what I mean? He just can't get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Question here from Nathan. He's put here, remember the fight between Jamie Moore and Matthew Macklin? Oh, yeah, of course. Laura, I'm sure you remember that as well.
I remember that well.
They were friends as well. Them two were friends, weren't they? And
They're friends now, yeah. But I remember at the time there was a bit of a needle going into that fight because they were both very good fighters, big prospects in this country. And I remember Jamie Moore. He was being trained by a guy. He's since lost his life. So shout out to him and condolences to his family. God rest his soul. Oliver Harrison. And I remember going up to Oliver Harrison's gym a couple of times and talking in Manchester and talking to him about that fight. Yeah, man. So yeah, that was an excellent fight, man. You know what I mean? Matthew Macklin was like the bully, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The big puncher, the big strong guy. He was supposed to come in and do a number on Jamie Moore, man. But Jamie Moore, you know what I mean? He had an excellent game plan and he executed it to perfection. So yeah, I remember that.
Light middle or middle? Because if it was light middleweight was a.
That would have been light middle, I think. Yeah.
It's a very good division back then, man. Very good division back then. Mohammed has said here, do you remember the fight between Victor Ortiz and Andre? I guess he's talking about Andre Berto.
Yeah.
Again.
They fought twice, actually. That first fight was legendary, wasn't it? They were bouncing each other up and down the canvas. And it was a great, great fight, man. Probably Victor Ortiz's best moment in a ring, wasn't it?
Mm.
And then they fought years later, and unfortunately,
not the second fight, though.
Yeah, Victor Ortiz disgraced himself, quit, and had the Mexican fans throwing beer at him as he came out the ring. Victor Ortiz is a bit of an enigma, you know, because he had a lot of talent, and he could punch. Yeah. But I'm going to be honest and say I think that in terms of natural talent, man, and athleticism, I think Victor Ortiz was the better fighter. But mentally, he was never quite there. There was always something very.
Berto had a lot of talent as well.
Yeah, Berto was good, but I just think naturally, I think Victor Ortiz could have been a star in this game, man. But I just think mentally he wasn't together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Didn't have it.
That he underachieved in his career. But he was a very good fighter. And yeah, and shout out Andre Berto as well. But again, another very good fighter. Yeah. I do remember both those fights, though.
Yeah. Ian Hamilton says here, another question. If somehow, I think he's trying to say, if somehow you pulled off a Don King interview, how would you get past his usual bluster to get something out of him? Because he always overwhelmed interviewers. What would be your method? Well, first of all, there's a reason why I don't do interviewing, and it's because I'm just not that kind of person, man. Like, I know you've got to be very patient. I can do it, but just the thought of running someone down, chasing them for an interview, begging to speak to them, being careful of what you say and all that stuff never really appealed to me. I know that if I did that, this channel would have a lot more subscribers than it does now. Do you know what I mean? But it's just not really me. So if I was to interview Don King, I've seen how Don King acts. He can be an intimidating type of presence. I'll probably just try and talk to him on a level, just to let him know, like, because Don King was one of them guys. I think if I spoke to him on a level, and just be like, yo, what's going on, man? Like, not try and be like too upfront and uptight, and do you know what I mean? Try and get him relaxed a little bit, see what I could get out of him and that sort of thing. Maybe that would be the method I'd approach it. Maybe just approach him from like, I'd say like a man them point of view, or like a friend, you know what I'm saying? That type of way, rather than being like direct, just ask questions, and, you know, I'll probably be a bit more relaxed with it. What about you, Laurie?
Well, the question is, how would you get past his usual bluster? I think the only way you're going to do that, or anyone's ever going to do that.
Yeah, I don't ever know how you could do that.
Because literally, this guy could talk for hours. I remember back in the days when he was promoting fights, and let's face it, he was a legendary promoter, one of the greatest of all time, despite a lot of the shenanigans that went on in and around him. But literally, he would take the mic up, and this is, I'm not joking, and he would literally be talking for hours on end. So much so that the fighters and all that barely got a look in. He would take up the majority of the press conference, just going on about, you know what I mean, himself, what a great promoter is, what a great country America is, and stuff like that. And but he had a certain swag that tend to work, man. You know what I mean? He was a larger-than-life character, to say the least. And back in those days, anyway, he got away with it. So, yeah, man.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if you want to, you know what I mean, stop the bluster, turn the mic off. That's the only way you're going to, because you're not going to out-talk a guy like that.
Yeah. DS has said here, question for the both of you. What's your all-time dream fantasy fights? All-time dream fantasy fights, man. One of them, I'd say, for me, Laurie, I mean, you get the Tyson and Ali one a lot, don't you? That one you get a lot. Mike Tyson and Ali. Mayweather and Sugar Ray Leonard for me would have been out. It would have been something. Maybe, I mean, they say if Mayweather fought Pacquiao when they were supposed to fight, would that have been, you know, an all-time fantasy fight? Some people say they fought too late. I mean,
to me, the two greatest boxers to ever live were Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Robinson.
Yeah.
So we've spoken about Muhammad Ali. So in answer to this question about a dream fantasy fight, how about Sugar Ray Robinson versus Marvin Hagler, middleweight? You know what I mean? So, but then Sugar Ray Robinson, it could be argued that his best fights were at welterweight. So Sugar Ray Robinson versus Sugar Ray Leonard. A prime Sugar Ray Leonard versus a prime Sugar Ray Robinson. Tyson, I'm not, you know what it is with Tyson, right? I have this theory about Mike Tyson. He's a great fighter and he's a legend. But I always say to people that sort of talk about Tyson in, you know, I mean, these reverential terms, I always say, can you ever remember a fight where Mike Tyson came from behind to win? And to me, that is one of the criteria by which you should judge truly great fighters. You look at most of the truly great fighters. We spoke about Sugar Ray Leonard earlier. You know what I mean? Even Hagler Hearns, the way he came back from adversity. Lennox Lewis in some of his fights. Remember that fight with Klitschko when he looked like he was about to lose. And then they just find something from within him and they turn it around. I don't think you could ever say that about Mike Tyson. He's always been a front runner, a bit of a bully. And so as much as he has been a great fighter and I've enjoyed watching him, I wouldn't have him up there in my top all-time fighters. In fact, I'd even have people like Larry Holmes ahead of him. You know what I mean? And I know when I say that to certain people, what? You ain't got Tyson in your top 3-5 heavyweights of all time? I'd be like, nah. Don't get me wrong. He was a great fighter. There's no doubt about it. But there was, you know what I mean? There was those little questions I've got in my mind, man, that never to me quite got answered. And when I'm thinking about the truly great fighters, that's how I tend to look at it. I
said that not too long ago, actually. I think I said that to DS, actually, about Tyson, how when he's in adversity, normally he crumbles.
Yeah, he'd normally check out, man. You know what I mean? So the truly great guys are the ones that are experiencing adversity in that ring, man, and have done something to turn it around. Changed tactics, made adjustments, come out with a big punch, done something, you know what I mean, to truly turn. I don't think you could ever say that Mike Tyson's ever done that.
Well, here's a question for you from DS again. I actually did a fantasy fight on my, I do a Mythical Mondays on my video, on my YouTube channel every Monday. And I did Tyson against Foreman. I picked Foreman, but DS has put here, and I'll let you answer this, Laurie. Prime for prime, Tyson against Ali, Frazier, Foreman, and Holmes. How do you see him against all of those prime for prime? Ali, Tyson against all of those guys.
You know what? I'm going to say he doesn't beat any of those guys for me. And I know some people are going to look at it, what? Because, you know, again, they're looking at the highlight reel knockouts, and there's no doubt about it. Listen, Tyson was the youngest heavyweight champion of all time. He took that record off Ali, of course. But if you look at the kind of people that Ali beat in his career, man, you can't really compare Tyson to him. You know what I mean? And same with Frazier. Same with Foreman and Holmes. I mean, he would have been competitive against all of those guys, especially Frazier, because they've got similar builds. But I think Frazier would have outlasted Tyson. Tyson may have put him down a couple of times, man. But I could see Smoking Joe, you know what I mean, coming on strong in the late rounds and forcing the stoppage. So for me, he doesn't beat any of those four. Definitely doesn't beat. I mean, I know he beat Larry Holmes when Larry Holmes was
he was past it,
40-odd years old. But go and watch some of Larry Holmes' fights, man, with Ernie Shavers and Ken Norton and people like that, man, and stuff like that. And you tell me, you honestly think that Tyson would have beaten that version of Larry Holmes? I don't think he would. With that jab as well, with Larry Holmes' legendary heart and will, nah. I can't.
Foreman, he was just as intimidating as Mike. Would you say who was more intimidating out of those two in their prime? It was the more
intimidating. It was very similar. It was very similar, man, because George Foreman was putting people to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was. So, yeah.
You don't have Tyson beating any of them?
I'd say he's competitive, especially against Fraser and Foreman, but he definitely doesn't beat Ali or Holmes. But if I'm being honest, I would probably pick all 4 of those guys to beat.
Okay, just going through some comments here. Conrad is saying Parker Chisora is easily in my top 3 fight of the year. Would you say that, Laurie? I wouldn't say that, I don't think.
It's hard to judge off the bat, but it was a very, very good fight, man.
No, I'm not saying that's my top. No, I'm not saying that's my top 3. Because I could think of 2 straight away.
But it was a very good fight. It's the best fight I've ever seen Joseph Parker in, that's for sure. I mean, Derek, he's been in a number of fights like this. You know what I mean? I don't think that fight at the weekend was a better fight than the Dillian White one versus Chisora a few years back.
No, it wasn't.
First fight.
Nah.
Yeah.
I think
you have to remember that as well as Joseph Parker fought, and listen, I don't want to take too much away from it, but we have to also be honest. We have to also qualify that by saying this version of Chisora is not the version that Dillian fought a few years back. You know what I mean? This is a Chisora with more miles on the clock. You could see that. He gassed out fairly early. Only heart and will and courage kept him in there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And some of the way he was old man in Parker, like walking to the corners, you know what I mean, and putting his hands up and then firing back when the referee looked poised to jump in. That was Derek there using his experience and his sheer willpower and his courage and heart. But the Chisora and Dillian White won. I mean, they were both great fights, but that first fight, man, gosh, that was an incredible fight, man. That could have gone either way, couldn't it? I mean, a lot of people thought that Derek won that fight. I had Dillian nicking it by a round, but I wouldn't have argued if it had gone the other way. It was that close.
Yeah.
Whereas with this one, Parker was always winning, wasn't he?
That's why it weren't my fight. I mean, straight away, Estrada Chocolatito was better than that. I didn't like the result, but that was better. Fury and Wilder was better. That's just 2 of them. They're not my fight of the year. But it was a good fight. It was a good fight.
No, it was a very good fight. And I think it was the thing about that fight as well. It was a lot better than we expected it was going to be. You know?
Yeah.
I have to say, Derek Chisora is not very good in rematches, is he? Got stopped by Tyson Fury. You know what I mean? He got knocked out by Dillian. And he got soundly beaten by Joseph Parker, although he put in a very good performance. But he did lose all 3.
Nathan says here, any Sam Egerton or Ted Cheeseman fight is epic. Ted Cheeseman, what do you think he should do with his career now?
Retire.
Yeah?
Retire. You know what I mean? That guy's taken a lot of punishment. He's been through a lot, man. Out the ring as well. I mean, I know he's starting to turn his life around now. Apparently he's
only 26 years old, isn't it?
Business. But if I'm being honest with Ted Cheeseman, man, he's been British champion. He's fought for the European. He was soundly beaten in that fight. I mean, the way he lost that, it was a brutal knockout, wasn't it? To the guy from Darlington. What's the guy's name?
Troy
Williamson. Yeah. So he's not gonna. I mean, that division as well, man. You look at some of the killers in that division, man. I can't see him winning any titles anytime soon in that division. So he's basically just going to be a stepping stone for the up-and-coming guys. And given the fact that Ted Cheeseman, he's such a warrior, he's so tough, he's not going to get blown away in any of those fights, which means that he's going to, a bit like Derek Chisora, he's just going to keep taking punishment. And I don't think he's a fairly young man. He's got a girlfriend or a wife, and I know he's got a young son, I think it is. He doesn't need that, man. You know what I mean? He's done everything he's going to do, if you ask me. Yeah, with no disrespect to him, I think he's achieved what he's going to achieve, which is British champion. I don't think it's going to get any better for him than that. And I'm not trying to disrespect the guy because I admire him, but I just think that your health comes before, you know what I mean, any other thing in boxing right now, man. I think at the very least he needs to take a long, long rest. But then the problem with that is if he's out the ring that long, coming back is going to be difficult. Yeah. So if I was advising him, I'd say to Ted, look, you've had a not very long career, but you've achieved a lot in that time. You've been British champion. You've been in some tremendous fights. You've made a decent amount of money. You could stay in the sport if you want, man, by being a coach, a trainer, a manager. or advisor, you know what I mean? Whatever. But getting in between the ring in those ropes and taking punishment, nah, not a good look.
Stefan says here, will we see any of the quote-unquote four kings fight each other in 2022? Now, let me just say, the quote-unquote four kings, I'm guessing now, are what? Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney.
What, Ryan Garcia, a king?
Well, no, I'm saying what they. No, listen. Now wait. I'm saying what they class. I'm saying what they class as the biggest misnomer. Now wait. I'm saying what they. I'm saying what they class as the four kings, not me.
No, but I'm saying it's people shouldn't use that term.
Yeah, I know they should. That's why I've said he's put quote unquote. But they're supposed to be the young guys, aren't they? The young guys coming up.
We'll call them young guys then. Yeah.
Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Lopez. Javonte Davis, you've got to have Kambosos in there as well now. Are we going to see those guys mix it up this next year?
Well, I mean, I don't know if we are, because Ryan Garcia, let's start with him. When's he going to get back in the ring? I mean, he was running his mouth on Isaac Cruz. Isaac Cruz has called him out. Let's see if that fight happens. That would be a good fight for him to come back. But is he coming back? I mean, we've seen it with Ryan Garcia all last year. All this guy does is talk and go on the internet and embarrass himself and make silly statements that he knows he's not going to back up. So to label him, and I'm not saying you did it, to label him as a four king is lunacy. Teofimo's in a poor space right now. He got humiliated, let's be honest. He got beaten, and the way he's taken to that defeat is, I don't know when we're going to see him in the ring again, but I have doubts whether he's going to get back to anywhere near what he was when he beat Lomachenko, I must admit. The signs I'm seeing from him are not good. Let's just say that. And then you're then down to Devin Haney and Javonte. Out of those four, I think Javonte is probably the most talented, but I think the one that, if I was going to put my backing behind, would be Devin Haney, because he's the most reliable out of all those guys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the Four Kings label, I'm sorry, that's the biggest misnomer in boxing.
It is horrible. Listen, it's horrible. It's a horrible term. Conrad has said here, is David Morrell the next big thing? Cuban boxer.
I like the look of him, man. I do like the look of him. Yeah.
6-0, still early, super middleweight. Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I mean, he's only had about 10, 11 fights, man, but every time I see him, he looks good. I mean, they're talking about him versus David Benavidez. Now, I heard a rumor today. Tell me that this is just a rumor. That they're lining up David Benavidez to fight David Lemieux.
No, I think that's true.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, come on.
That's true, man, yeah.
Where did that come from? There's so many better fights out there that could be made. Whose idea? Who put that out there? I'd love to know whose idea that was, because that makes no sense at all. Are they trying to get David Lemieux seriously hurt? Has he upset somebody or something?
Yeah, it's not a good fight for him, man. He's not a natural super middleweight either.
Yeah, exactly. He's not a super middleweight. His best work was at light middle. He went up to middle. He got thrashed by Billy Joe Saunders. And he's kind of disappeared since.
Yeah.
And now you want to put him in with a stone cold killer at a weight above. Come on, man. It's a joke. But anyway, Morrell, man, yeah, a lot of people was sort of looking forward and talking about him in the same likes of David Benavidez and people like that. Now, that would be an excellent fight, man, because Morrell looks to have it all, man. He's a Cuban guy, isn't he?
Yeah,
excellent very good. Amateur. And they're fast-tracking him as a pro, it seems. You know what I mean? They're talking about him, you know what I mean, as the next big thing. And all he needs is the backative, man, and the promotion, because he definitely has the ability to do big things.
Yeah.
I'd like to see who's the guy. What weight is he? The guy from New York, Edwin Berlanga.
Yeah, Berlanga. Yeah.
But I don't know if Berlanga would want that fight right now, to be honest, man. Because looking at the two of them, I think Berlanga's a big puncher, but in terms of skill set, he's not on Morrell's level.
Yeah. Question here from Ash. I think you'll like this one here. He's put, Merry Christmas, gents. Why is Fury continuously allowed to get away with murder? He's a good fighter, but he's a complete fraud at the same time. I'm sick of the Fury antics, man. I'm not gonna lie. I'm just like, I can't take anything that he says seriously. This whole fighting men talk, I'm not seeing it. Do you know what I mean? I'm just not. There's rumors now that he's going to give up the WBC belt and fight somebody else in March. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of the whole circus around Tyson Fury, man. I'm not going to lie. Laurie, what do you think?
Well, I said this and more at the time when he fought Wilder, and a lot of people came on here and give me a lot of stick, said I was a Fury hater, but we're seeing it again, aren't we, from him? You know what I mean? He does this. He disappears, he comes out, he wins a fight, and then he disappears again. And then in between, we have to put up with all the nonsense. It's just a never-ending cycle, isn't it? It kind of makes you hard to really gravitate towards the guy. You know what I mean? Because he's a very good fighter, no doubt about it.
Yeah, he is.
And he's a larger-than-life character. He should be like one of the foremost people in the sport. You know what I mean? That kind of shining light for boxing. You know what I mean? But he just isn't because of stuff like this. And it's very disturbing talk the way he's talking about the Dillian fight. Why would you want to do that? That's a fight that loads of people would want to see, surely. And a fight that is a winnable fight if you're Tyson Fury.
Yeah.
But, you know, like you said, we get all the shenanigans that come with it. I guess the reason why people put up with him, Daryl, is because he's winning. That's what tends to happen in boxing and in a lot of sports. If you're winning, you can get away with a lot. Once you start losing, then obviously it becomes a different story. People say, "Oh, that's it now," you know what I mean? So, but yeah, while he's winning, there's a, you know what I mean, that there's a certain license to get away with a lot of stuff, you know? So,
yeah.
But yeah, disappointing, man, disappointing.
Mohammed Zishan's got a question here for you, Laurie. He's put, Laurie, did you have amateur boxing fights? Yeah, you had loads.
Yeah, I had, I forget how many amateur fights I had, but I had junior fights and senior fights, yeah. Going back a long time now, but yeah. Very good experience, man. It was the
tell them what level you got to.
Open class. I boxed in the amateurs, in the ABAs a few times. I got to a couple of divisional finals. I never actually won. There was one year I'm going to say I was robbed. I thought I was robbed of a certain victory. I boxed for London. I boxed for the home counties. So I've had my moments, man. I enjoyed my amateur career. I wish I'd have had more fights. I think what tended to happen with me back in the days that you go to a lot of shows and you wouldn't get on. And that I found that very frustrating because you get yourself into what you felt was tip-top condition, go to these shows, and for whatever reason, they couldn't match you up. And I used to find that side of it very frustrating. So I probably would have had more fights had it panned out the way I did, wanted it to, but it didn't. But having said that, man, I don't regret anything about boxing. I really enjoyed it, even when it was hard at times. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, man, I would recommend it to anyone.
Obes has said here, a prime Sergio Martinez versus Floyd Mayweather at 154. And let me just say something. This tells you how good Floyd is, because naturally he's a super featherweight, 130 pounder. That's where he started his career. When you talk about fantasy fights, you put Floyd in there at 130, 140, 147, 154 here. Floyd did obviously compete at all of those weights, but you'd say he was at his best when he was at the lower weights, but he was so good he could still win at these higher weights as well. I mean, he was undefeated in his career. Sergio Martinez was great at 154. Laurie, how do you see that fight going? Who wins it?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer because obviously Floyd, when he was at 154, was nowhere near his prime. But then even then, you saw what he did to Canelo at 154. So I would have to put my money on Floyd, man, because with Floyd, it's not just the physicality, was it? Because he wasn't a big junior middle by any standards, but what he had was the smartness and the boxing ability and the defense. So I could see him eking out a points win against Sergio, to be honest, who also was a very good fighter, very athletically gifted too, but southpaw. But then Floyd always seemed to come up with the right game plan, make the right adjustments. And you look at the fighters he'd been, man, I mean, beaten. A couple of them are better than Sergio. Cotto, for example, he beat Cotto. He beat Canelo, you know what I mean? Both those guys you would say are better than Sergio. So yeah, man, I'll give I'd have to say, for me, Floyd is the best fighter of this generation that we're in now, or even just recent.
Yeah.
He's definitely, without a doubt. I mean, people say Pacquiao won 8 titles at different weights and stuff like that. Yeah, you could say that. But look what happened when he fought Floyd. Floyd totally nullified him. Totally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It made him look ordinary in there. You know what I mean? Come on now.
And I think he would have beat him back in 2009, 2000.
Yeah, he would have beaten him, man. I mean, at the end of the day, we all know the reason why that fight didn't get made, and that was to do with Pacquiao not wanting to submit himself for drug testing. That is the be-all and end-all why that fight took so long to make. And like I said, once they had the fight, a lot of people were disappointed in the actual fight itself. Me, I thought it was a masterclass by Floyd because, like I said, he totally nullified Pacquiao. Yes, it wasn't the most exciting, but it was intriguing because he dealt with. I mean, if you look at what Pacquiao did after Floyd, some of the great victories he had. But look how Floyd, and that was back in 2015, I believe. And Pacquiao, a couple of years ago, was beating a young gun like Keith Thurman, dropping him, stuff like that. So, shows you how good Floyd is, man. Yeah. Maybe not all the fights weren't as exciting as some of the people would have it, but you can't argue with the guy's ability and his skill set, man. Second to none. He's not the best of people outside the ring either. I've got to say that, but inside the ring, he's mercurial, man. The best.
Francisco Alator has put here, before you close the show and I'm too late, I just want to say have a great Christmas. If I could afford it, I would send you guys Canelo pajamas and tracksuits.
I think Eddie Hearns got a pair of those pajamas, isn't he? I think that's one of Eddie Hearns' prized possessions. He loves talking about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Steve Harrison, big up Steve Harrison, man. He's put here, Stanley Ketchel versus Marvin Hagler would have been an absolute war. Peak Tour versus post-prison Tyson would have been a very fun fight. Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Stanley Ketchel, I remember reading about him, wasn't he? He was a very gregarious character. I think he got Polish antecedents, fought back in the day. I think he got murdered, didn't he? By somebody who he was sleeping with their wife or their girlfriend or something like that. But yeah, man, he was a hell of a fighter. Yeah, I remember reading about him back in the day, Stanley Ketchel. Yeah.
Francisco said here, what are your favorite non-documentary boxing films? For me, it's Raging Bull and Requiem for a Heavyweight. I don't know, man. Non-documentary.
It's definitely none of the Rocky films. I didn't like any of it. I think actually the only Rocky film that I liked, and seriously, the only one that I thought was any good, was Rocky 3 with Clubber Lang in it. Remember that one?
Yeah.
I thought
Rocky
that was
4. I like Rocky 4.
The rest of the Rocky films, nah. But I would agree, Raging Bull for me is probably the best one with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Just the production, the cinematography with the way they put that together, the acting. For those of you who don't know, most of you probably do, Robert De Niro plays Jake LaMotta. I remember after I watched that film, I went out and bought a book because I'd heard about Jake LaMotta before that, but the film was that good. It actually inspired me to go out and buy a book about Jake LaMotta, and I've watched several documentaries on YouTube and all that since. So yeah, that was a fantastic film.
Yeah. You know what? I'll be real. I haven't seen it.
Really? Wow, you need to see that.
I haven't seen it. No, I ain't seen it.
No, you need to see that, bro. That's required watching for a boxing fan because it's so well shot that it kind of gives you an insight into what it would have been like fighting back in those days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In the 40s and 50s and stuff like that, when the boxing was mob controlled. A lot of people would say it's still mob controlled, and they probably wouldn't be far from the truth. But back in those days, it was a little bit more blatant, you know what I mean? Fixed fights and stuff like that. But yeah, man, spoiler alert, but yeah, go if you haven't seen that film, go and watch it, man.
I've done a lot more reading this year. I know it's not films, but I've done more reading this year, and I've got this book right here. Unbelievable book. This is. You can see it, Laurie. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I've got that book. Yeah, that is an incredible book, man.
It's just such an amazing. For any of you guys watching, just this book right here, The Rise and Fall of Jack Johnson. I'm sure you guys obviously know about him. Like just the whole story, his character, just the ending. I don't want to spoil it, but I mean, one of the best books I've ever read in my life.
Definitely. And I remember I read that book about more than once. I read it a couple of times, actually. But I remember my dad telling me about Jack Johnson, because Jack Johnson was one of Muhammad Ali's inspirations.
Yeah, he was.
He borrowed a lot of the stuff, you know what I mean, the boastfulness and the swagger. A lot of it he got from Jack Johnson, because Jack Johnson was the first black heavyweight champion. Obviously, you're talking about the early 1900s, and the stuff that he had to put up with is something that no man should have to put up with. And just the way he navigated through that, and the way he was not backing down from anything and living his life to the full. And of course, he was an excellent champion in the ring as well. Even the style, the defense and stuff like that. You know what I mean? He was shoulder rolling long before Mayweather was. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's an amazing story, man. And like I said, a lot of the fighters that came after him would reference Jack Johnson. You know what I mean? So yeah, man.
When I read that book, sorry, before I'm over elaborating a little bit, but I just wanted to say, when I read that book, I really felt like I was in it. I could really, it was so detailed, and it was just it's an amazing book. Amazing book, man. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Steve Harrison has put here, the good old days, Queensway Hall, Laurie.
Yeah, I remember Queensway Hall, man. Yeah, I remember that. Not far from the All Stars where our gym was in London. Yeah. Queensway Hall, man. Yep.
Born Again Biker has put here, Rocky 3 was the best of the Rocky films.
Oh, without a doubt. I didn't really.
What about Rocky 4? What about the one with the Russian in it?
Yeah, it's all right. It's very predictable, you know what I mean. But the Rocky 3 was genuinely entertaining. I mean, they're all predictable. You all know what's going to happen in the end when you watch a Rocky film. But at least with the Rocky 3 film, the acting of Mr. T, Clubber Lang, and the way the way that film panned out, it was very entertaining.
Okay, Francisco's saying here, Ken Burns did a long documentary on Jack Johnson. It's good, check it out. I'll check that out, yeah. Steve is saying HBO did a documentary on that book. I'm going to check that out because the book was fascinating to me. So I'll check out that doc. I will check these docs out. Don't know if you've seen them, Laurie, or not, but
I've seen a lot of different documentaries on Jack Johnson, but again, it's been inspired by that book. So yeah.
OS in the building has put here, does Daniel Dubois beat Chisora if it happens next? He's got two questions here. Is Jared Anderson the next American world champion? So let's start with the first one. Does Daniel Dubois beat Chisora if it happens next? Good question.
I'll be honest, I wouldn't like to see that fight because I think Derek should retire. Having said that, he's gone on record as saying that he won't retire. I could see Frank Warren trying to make that fight. If they do fight, I think there's only one winner, let's be honest. I mean, don't get me wrong, Derek will bring it and he will be mildly dangerous for as long as it lasts, but I can't see anything other than Dubois probably knocking him out because Dubois is a bigger puncher than Joseph Parker. And
needs a big year next year, doesn't he? Needs a big year, Daniel Dubois next year.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's in the mix. I mean, what about Daniel Dubois versus Jared Anderson at some point? That would be a great fight. But I don't think you'll see that anytime soon. With regard to Jared Anderson, I think he can become the next champion. I do like the look of him. Not seen him get hit back yet, though. He's been that good so far that he's just blowing everyone away. But he does look the part, I must say. I'm impressed with him. But we're not really going to know about these guys until we're in a real meaningful fight. At the moment, what's happening with guys like him and Dubois, although Dubois did fall on his sword when he fought Joe Joyce, is that they're in fights to enhance their reputations, basically. They're being carefully matched. And you saw what happened to Dubois, where they tried to match him against Joe Joyce thinking it was a very winnable fight, and you saw what happened. So could the same happen to Jared Anderson? So you don't know. But I do like the look of it. And I still do believe that Dubois can become a champion as well. I mean, listen, he had that loss. A loss is not the end of the world. And I don't go along with this narrative that he's a quitter. I think he's a young man that found himself in a very difficult situation. For me, he took the smart way out. He probably saved his career. Some people will say it was a quick job, But then some of those people who said he was a quick job, look what happened to them. Look at Billy Joe Saunders. Don't do that, Daniel. If you're in there, mate, you give it. Did he do that against Canelo? You got paired there?
Steve Harrison says here, Queensway Hall Dunstable, we both boxed against South Normanton.
Oh, right. So, right. I thought he was talking about, because there's, right. Yeah, you see, maybe there's too many punches for there. I think I must have won that night, yeah? But yeah, I do remember boxing at Dunstable a few times, man. Yeah, I've had a couple of good performances there. When I was, at that time, I was boxing for Lucy in Luton.
Yeah, I boxed at that.
There's a Queensway Hall and up in London that we used to box at too.
Yeah.
Near the All Stars, yeah. So yeah.
OS has said here, Jared Anderson called out Hrgovic and Dubois after his last fight. Is that too early for him?
I'll tell you what, if he did do that, then that's very encouraging. The only problem is, I'm not sure if his managers will entertain that, will they? I mean, I'd love to see that. But
Hrgovic, is that too early?
Yeah, Hrgovic keeps saying that he needs a big fight, which is true. Because he's kind of falling under the radar a little bit as well at the moment, isn't he? So he needs a big fight, man. I mean, we was suggesting on your show last week that if Joseph Parker won, what about Joseph Parker versus Hrgovic?
Yeah.
So that would be a good fight for Hrgovic. Because Hrgovic was a very good amateur, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was.
And a lot of people were expecting him to do big things. But it's not quite happened to him yet. But it's not too late. It's a bit like Tony Yoka. Yoka was the gold medalist, controversially beating Joe Joyce, by the way. And he's been boxing out of France. And he's kind of gone under the radar a little bit, isn't it? He's winning, he's unbeaten, but we're not really hearing about him in those terms that he's going to fight for a world title anytime soon. So you've got people like Yoka, Hrgovic, Joe Joyce, you know what I mean? People like that. Those guys should really be making a push now in 2022. Jared Anderson's probably a little bit behind that, as is Dubois. Those are a little bit behind the schedule of those other three. But Hrgovic, Yoka, Joe Joyce, people like that, man. Now that, especially Joe Joyce, he needs a world title shot soon, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
He needs that soon.
He's in a good position.
Yeah. What about Joe Joyce versus Hrgovic, a final eliminator for a world title?
Great fight.
That's a great fight, man.
It's a great fight.
It's a great fight.
Last question here for the night, Laurie, before we call it a night. It's from our guy, Francisco. He says here, if you were Zerdo's trainer, given Zerdo's ability and style, what tactics would you try to have him execute against Bivol and Beterbiev? Listen, Beterbiev, for me, he's the number one. I don't see Zerdo beating him. I think Zerdo is very good. I think it gives Bivol all he can handle.
I think Zerdo beats Bivol.
You think he beats Bivol?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know.
Absolutely.
It's close.
Huh?
I want to see it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it, but I don't think Bivol will want it, innit? You know what Bivol's like. He ain't going to want that fight.
What does Zerdo have to do?
Zerdo, who's normally quite a reserved guy, it was interesting that when he fought that Gonzalez guy, the Cuban, by the way, that was a very good fight, actually.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Very competitive. Zerdo, who's normally quite reserved and quite respectful, he was saying, that man's scared of me. He was very dismissive of Bivol, man.
Yeah, but you like that.
That was interesting, the way he spoke of Bivol in those terms. He was, you know what I mean, borderline disrespectful of it. And I thought, see, that's the kind of response that Bivol, you know what I mean, tends to generate from people. But I saw Beterbiev, man, again. Oh, gosh. That guy is a beast.
A monster.
He beast. I mean, he did what we said, me and you said he would do, innit, last week, which was the first couple of rounds, he'll have a look at Marcus Brown. Marcus Brown might even win those first 2 rounds on the fact that he's moving and being cautious and jabbing and so. But once Beterbiev gets the distance and the range, it's done. And you saw, man, he just completely dismantled Marcus Brown. Just beat him up. And just not, you know what I mean, just made him quit, basically. That's what he did, didn't he?
Yeah, he made him quit.
Beat him up and made him quit.
Even with that horrible cut.
I was just about to say that. Even with that cut, that was some fights that might have been stopped. In fact, they were saying, I don't know if they were saying that to G him up or whether it was true, but they were saying one more round. That was the worst thing that Marcus Brown could have heard. Because I'm telling you now, the way Beterbiev, and the thing I like about Beterbiev as well is, right, is he's not just a slugger. It's not just the power. It's the way he puts the shots together.
He's very good.
Yeah.
Very good amateur record.
Yeah. And then the corner kept saying to him, go to the body. And then as soon as he went to the body, you saw what happened, man. You know what I mean? And even though Marcus Brown clearly quit, I didn't really blame him. You know what I mean? Because he was getting busted up in there, man.
Yeah. And
those are the types of fights that they take a lot out of you, trust me. Those are the types of fights that when you see Marcus Brown in there next time and you wonder why he's gone over from a relatively not that powerful shot, you think back to the time when he got absolutely brutalized by Beterbiev and you think, yeah, wear and tear. That's what boxing, especially at that level, can do to you. Luckily, I was an amateur. I didn't have too many of those fights, if any. But yeah, when you see a guy like Beterbiev, man, you know what I mean, let his hands go like that, and the shots are, you know what I mean, not being returned, no fires coming back. He's beating up on guys, man. And if you notice as well, the Canelo camp have gone very quiet, haven't they?
Yeah.
Because they know, bro. You know what I mean? Beterbiev would wipe the floor with Canelo. And I say that as respectfully as I can say, because Canelo is a great fighter. But he's got no chance against Beterbiev. None of them guys have right now.
Well, look at this here from OS. He's put Bivol beats everyone. He punches extremely hard as well to really hurt Harper like Callum Johnson did. And he has more boxing IQ than Arthur. I'm doing Arthur.
Does he? Look at Arthur Beterbiev's amateur record, man, and you'll see that he's beaten Usyk in the amateurs. You know what I mean? Did Bivol ever do that? Listen, man. Beterbiev walks through Bivol, and Bivol knows that. He's never even mentioned his name.
Yeah. I think he beats them all at light heavyweight, Beterbiev. He beats them all.
The only thing that's going to catch up with Beterbiev inevitably is going to be age, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Tony Bellew make some statement that, Canelo would want to fight Beterbiev because he's catching him at the right time. No, he's not. No, he's not. It's not the right time at all. He would destroy Canelo.
You think what? You think so?
Yeah.
He destroy? What do you mean? Knock him out?
Listen, man, Canelo's got a chin. He might not get knocked out, but he would get beat up, though. Eddie Reynoso would probably have to throw that towel in, save him from himself. Because listen, I've got no hesitation in saying that Canelo is one tough man. He's got one of the best chins in boxing, if not the best. You know what I mean? Definitely got one of the best chins in boxing. But when you're going up in weight and fighting a monster like that, man, you know what I mean? It's not it's not an easy thing to do. And you are going to get hit by him, you know what I mean? I mean, listen, I think Canelo would probably do better than Marcus Brown did because, like I said, after 2 rounds, it was a foregone conclusion. But to beat him, nah, not for me.
I also said here,
which is why they've gone for Makubu.
I also said here, Usyk beat him more times in the amateurs than Artur Beterbiev did. It's a puncher versus boxer fight for me.
Yeah, that's true, but those fights were over 3 rounds as well.
I think at 175, Beterbiev is a monster, man. Unless it's the only thing that beats him is age. If they catch him at the right, but right now, I don't see it.
I mean, in a couple of years' time or whenever it is, when he's got to 40, you're going to get a young guy going there with ambition who can take a punch, who's a good boxer, and he's probably going to be able to outpoint Beterbiev. But at this point in time, and I'm saying it, acknowledging that the light heavyweight division is stacked with talent. But to me, he's head and shoulders above everybody else in that division right now. Now, listen, boxing's a sport where things can change, you know what I mean? So by the next year, your likes of your Yard and people like that might have, you know what I mean, become even better fighters and improved, and Beterbiev might have commensurately have dipped a little bit. That's how boxing is. That's like a lot of sports, you know what I mean? That's why they say in boxing, timing is everything. But as of this moment right now, man, I can't see anybody beating Beterbiev. And like I said, that's not because there's not a lot of talent in that division, because the division is stacked. So that shows you how Beterbiev, how good he is. 17 wins, 17 KOs. All of them have just been like dismissed. I mean, I know Callum Johnson had his moments against him, but even he, man, he got bounced up and down the canvas a few times and that was it. And Callum Johnson is a very strong, tough guy.
Yeah.
Marcus Brown is a good fighter, but you saw the levels, man, innit?
Usyk was a good fighter. Look what Beterbiev did to Usyk.
Yeah, he retired Gavodzic.
Retired him.
Yeah. After that fight with Beterbiev, Gavodzic said no more, no mass.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying, bro. Like, you know what I mean? He's got to be on the pound for pound listings.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he's got to be.
But he probably wouldn't be because he's not that fashionable. He's not a household name. He doesn't speak great English, even though he lives in Canada. He's not. He's a devout Muslim. He's not seeking the limelight. He operates under the radar, which is, you know, fine. That's how he chooses to do his business. I'm not knocking him for it. But it also means that he's not known as well as some of the other guys are. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it doesn't mean to say he's no less good. And I must admit, I enjoy watching him, man. Because like I said, it's a kind of beautiful brutality with him, isn't it? Because it's not like he just goes in there winging without thinking about it. He's actually a precision puncher.
Yeah.
And the other day, when he had Marcus Brown going, some of the shots he was landing, short, sharp, hard shots, man. You know what I mean? Giving Marcus Brown nowhere to go. He was just pinning him up against the ropes, man, just tagging it. Beautiful. And every one of those shots was hurting Marcus Brown.
He's got something that Bivol don't have for me, and that's that killer instinct.
Yeah, man, Bivol.
Really, where he seeks
you know,
out.
I'm surprised that people are even mentioning Bivol.
Oh my! I was really surprised.
I think they're trolling us, though.
I was really surprised that I saw people like Andre Ward and those kind of guys saying Bivol looked beatable. I'm like, what? Like the guy had a serious cut.
Yeah, I mean,
the guy had a serious cut.
The first 2 rounds, Marcus Brown.
Yeah, but he was never in control like that.
No,
I never thought, oh man, he's gonna win. But it was just a matter of time.
It was.
That
was my interpretation of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but you know, I mean, Andre Ward, I wouldn't want to argue with him too much, man, because he's one of the all-time greats, and you know, he's been there and done it. So he knows more about boxing than me. I'm more than happy to concede that, but I don't see it the way he does when he's talking about Beterbiev looked beatable, because to me, he looked very impressive in that fight. That's what I thought.
With a bad cut, with a serious cut.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, man, let's be honest. Who won more rounds against each other? Did Kayla Plant win more rounds against Canelo, or did Marcus Brown win more rounds against Beterbiev? At best, Marcus Brown won 2 rounds.
Yeah.
Some people said that Kayla Plant was up on the cards when he fought Canelo. Not officially, because we know they're not going to give Kayla Plant any love on the card. But a lot of people were saying that it was 50-50 or a round or 2 in it. Yeah. Could you say that about...
No.
Did you say that about Marcus Brown up until the stoppage? Every round after the second round, he was virtually fighting for his life in it. Just to stay in there. Which is why...
just spread things up.
Yeah, which is why when he quit, I didn't really throw no shade on it. I thought, you know what? It is what it is. He's given his best. He's had the fight beat out of him. I can't, you know what I mean? He could possibly have got up from that body shot, but we didn't need to see anymore, did we? He was getting beaten down in there, man. That was it. So that's why I'm not going to like say, yeah, man, he quit. Some people said, oh, he quit. Those people are saying that don't really know boxing, man. The man had the fight completely taken out of him. And he was bloodied up and beaten up too. So it was that. We didn't need to see anymore, man.
Chris Dyer says here, it seems like everybody is waiting for Beterbiev to fall off the cliff. With all the UK guys in the queue, it's a shame only Callum Johnson has stepped up to fight him.
Well, you know what I would say, Chris? You are right, but can you blame him? Listen, man, Dan Aziz is my boy, yeah? That's my guy, man. I love Dan, yeah? But I'm going to keep it real, right? And I hope Dan, if he's watching this, doesn't take it personal. But if I'm managing Dan and I get a call tomorrow and say, yo, Dan, well done, you won the British title. How would you like to fight after Beterbiev for a world title in your next fight? Knowing Dan as I do, he'd take it. Because I know what Dan's like. I speak to him a lot. He's like, yeah, man. Yeah, bring it on. Let's go. If I'm Dan's manager, I'm saying, Dan, you know what? Bro, let me take the flak. I'll go out there and say, we're not quite ready for it yet. I will express it in a way that doesn't put it on you. Let me take the shit. because that's what good managers and promoters do, by the way. You know what I mean? But yeah, so in other words, what I'm saying is, I don't listen. I'm not advocating ducking. I'm just saying you do have to be a little bit strategic with one's career. So some of those guys who are not queuing up to fight him, I'm talking about the younger ones. I'm not talking about the guys like Canelo and the guys that are already champions. Once you're a world champion, you shouldn't be ducking anyone. That's facts. But the guys who are coming up, hell yeah, they're going to want to swerve Beterbiev because, as we alluded to earlier, he's probably going to be only going to be around for another year or two anyway. Although, if he keeps winning this easily, you never know, he might be around till his mid-40s. But yeah, man, that's how I feel about the light heavyweight division. It's a very stacked division. But for me, right now, as of December 2021, Artur Beterbiev is head and shoulders above everyone else in that division.
Agreed.
It includes Canelo, who's dipping in and out of weights as he wants. I mean, is Canelo going to fight the Bridgerweight champion next? I mean,
probably, yeah. What about this here from WM? He says here, Dan Aziz beats everybody at domestic level other than Yard and perhaps Buatsi. So everyone at domestic level, you're looking at Callum Johnson, Callum Smith, Craig Richards. You got some good guys up there.
Yeah, man. Listen, that division in Britain right now is smoking with guys all talented, all ambitious, all ready to go. Let's not write off Lyndon Arthur either. Okay,
Lyndon Arthur,
he's still a good fighter, and Pat Barrett's a very good trainer. I'm sure they're working on a comeback. You know what I mean? So, you know what I mean? And you know what boxing's like, man. On any given night, anyone can beat anyone. Look what happened with Anthony Yard and Lyndon last year. Last year. Yeah. Yard was a little bit off it, and what happened? He got beat. This time he was on it, and he beat Lyndon. But that's what can happen at that level. If you're a little bit off, sometimes we hear fighters and they're offering up excuses, and we say, yeah, excuses and all that. But at the top level, if you're 5% off it, it can make all the difference. So, But I would say, as I said before, not just in this country, but around the world, the light heavyweight division has some serious talent in it. However, I would say, from what I can see, right now, Beterbiev is the man.
Okay. Well, listen, guys, we're going to bring this to an end, man. Our live Christmas Q&A. We've been going on for an hour and 43 minutes. Very good show. Thank you to everybody once again for joining. Big up to all of you guys. Don't forget to hit the like button on the way out. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Almost at that 1K mark. And just one from me before I go. Just want to thank everybody for their support. Thank you all for being there. I wish you all a Merry Christmas, man. If you don't celebrate it, have a happy holidays. And, got nothing but love for you all, man. So big up you guys. Thank you for making these podcasts enjoyable. And look forward to seeing you all again soon. Have a good Christmas. Laurie, do you want to close out?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you very much again for having me on, helping me to indulge my passion in boxing. I just want to say shout out to all the people who support your show, not just this week, but throughout the previous year and before that even. Have yourselves a great Christmas. Hope you're well, healthy, and COVID-free. If you are unfortunate and you have COVID, I'm wishing you a speedy recovery. Let's hope you can get back to your normal self anytime soon. So yeah, man. Thanks for watching, guys. Share the video. Get people to subscribe. Go out and get those Canelo shirts. You know what I mean? You want a pair of it?
Big up to everybody, guys, man. Have a Merry Christmas. And we'll be back next year. We'll be back next week for the end of year awards. So look out for that.
Yeah, I'll be giving out some very interesting and varied awards next week, man. Make sure you tune in.
Big up to everybody, man. Enjoy your Christmas, and I'll see you guys soon.